Imagine this. What if everything you've ever been told about the beginning of the world is only a small part of a much larger story? What if there were rulers, immortal kings, who reigned long before Adam? What if the earth, our home, has seen a history so ancient and profound that it's been hidden from us for thousands of years? And what if these kings, these mighty rulers, are returning? Why haven't we heard about these kings? What secrets are buried in the stories of the past? Could the hidden truths of ancient civilizations, from Sumer to Egypt, to even the teachings of the Bible, be telling us something far deeper than we have ever imagined? In this video, we'll uncover the astonishing reality of what happened before the beginning of time as we know it, and how the immortality of ancient kings might just hold the key to understanding our true purpose. Together, we will explore the ancient texts, the sacred stories, and the profound mysteries that have been passed down through generations, all leading us toward an awakening of a divine truth that can change everything. As we delve into the story of these immortal kings, we will discover the hidden knowledge they offer, learn how their return could reshape everything we know about life, faith, and humanity, and what it means for you and me in our daily lives. We will open up a new understanding of who we are, where we come from, and why morning prayers have the power to change our lives forever. Prepare to be enlightened, to be moved, and to embark on a journey that may transform your understanding of the universe and your place in it. The Sumerian king list, a gateway to immortal rulers. Imagine, if you will, a time long before Adam, where the earth was ruled by kings whose reigns stretched for thousands of years. These rulers were not ordinary men. They were immortal, transcending the limitations of human time. The Sumerian king list, an ancient document from the cradle of civilization, reveals a startling truth. Long before the flood that reshaped the world, there were kings who reigned for tens of thousands of years. Take Alulim, the first king of Eridu, who is said to have ruled for an astonishing 28,800 years. His reign is followed by Alalgar, who ruled for 36,000 years. These figures are not the scribblings of a forgotten era. They are a key that unlocks a hidden past. It's almost as if the Bible's account of Genesis is intertwined with a much deeper, more mysterious timeline, a timeline that precedes the world as we know it. What does it mean when kings like these lived so long? Are these numbers symbolic? Or could they hint at something far greater than we can comprehend? The Sumerian king list isn't just a list of names and reigns. It's a record of an ancient civilization that existed before the flood. A civilization that understood the connection between the divine and the earthly realms. It's as if the kings themselves were manifestations of divine power, beings who lived so long because they were connected to forces beyond our understanding. The world these kings ruled was not a world we recognize today. It was a world that existed before sin, before the fall of mankind. A world where the divine and the mortal were closer, where men could live for millennia. Yet this world, as described in the Sumerian king list, was destroyed, perhaps by the very flood that Noah survived. But why were these kings so important, and why are they mentioned so briefly in history? Is it possible that the destruction of this ancient world was the result of a divine judgment? Just as the Sumerian king list records the reigns of these immortal kings, the Bible speaks of an ancient age, one that is difficult for us to fully understand. In Genesis, we hear of the Nephilim, the offspring of the sons of God and the daughters of men, beings who existed in a world far more connected to the divine than our own. The question we must ask ourselves is, why have these records been hidden, and what does it mean for us today? What can we learn from these ancient accounts? The answer lies not in the names or the numbers, but in the lesson they teach us about the fragility of human power and the enduring nature of the divine, the immortal kings in other civilizations, divine rulers. Across time. If you think that the concept of immortal kings is exclusive to Sumer, think again. Across the world, in ancient cultures like Egypt, Greece, and India, there are stories of gods and kings who ruled for unimaginable lengths of time. These stories aren't just fanciful tales. They carry a deeper truth, a truth that connects these ancient civilizations in a way that we often overlook. In Egypt, the gods Ra and Osiris were not just figures of worship. They were kings of the divine realm, rulers who existed before the pharaohs. Ra, the sun god, was believed to have reigned over Egypt for eons, bringing light and life to the world. Osiris, his son, was the god of life, death, and rebirth. His rule transcended earthly death, embodying the cycle of life itself. These gods were not bound by time or space. Their rule was eternal, just as the Sumerian kings' reigns extended beyond the limits of human understanding. In Hinduism, there are stories of yugas, great ages of time that span millions of years. Each yuga is governed by a divine ruler or deity, and these rulers are said to possess immense wisdom and power. The concept of a divine reign that stretches over vast periods mirrors the idea of immortal kings. In the Satya Yuga, the age of truth, the world was ruled by beings who were closer to the divine than humans are today. This divine connection is not just a myth. It's a reminder that humanity once walked in the presence of the gods, and that the divine and the mortal were not as distant as they are now. In Greek mythology, the Golden Age was a time when gods and humans coexisted harmoniously. The Titans, ancient gods who ruled before the Olympians, were said to be the first rulers of the earth, living long, prosperous lives. They were not just mythological creatures, they were representations of an ancient order that existed before the human world was divided by mortal struggles. The Greeks believed that the Golden Age was a time when humans lived in peace, unburdened by the chaos of modern existence. It was a time when kings ruled with wisdom and justice, their power drawn from the divine. These stories, though they come from different cultures, share a common thread. They speak of rulers who were not bound by time, who were intimately connected to the divine and the natural world. These immortal kings were not mere men, they were divine beings who brought order to the earth. Their rule was not just a symbol of power, it was a reflection of the harmony that once existed between the divine and the mortal. What can we learn from these stories? First, that the idea of immortal rulers is not just a curiosity of the past, it's a reflection of the deep connection that ancient civilizations had with the divine. These kings were not ordinary men, but divine manifestations of the higher powers. They remind us that there is more to this world than meets the eye, and that the boundaries between the divine and the earthly are not as fixed as we might believe. The lesson here is simple but profound. We are not as disconnected from the divine as we might think. Just as these immortal kings ruled over a world that was more attuned to the divine, we too can reconnect with that ancient power. The divine presence is not lost. It is still here, waiting for us to reclaim it. And just as the immortal kings were tasked with bringing order to the world, we too are called to bring divine order into our own lives. The question is, are we willing to listen and learn from the ancient wisdom that still echoes through the stories of these immortal rulers? The Gap Theory, unveiling the ancient world before Genesis. As we step deeper into the mystery of ancient times, we encounter a fascinating concept known as the Gap Theory, which suggests that between Genesis 1:1 and 1:2, there could have existed a world, a civilization, and even a creation that was lost in time. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. But what if this creation was not the first? What if an entire world existed before the one we know, a world that was destroyed? This is where the gap theory comes into play. The phrase tohu vabohu, meaning formless and void, in Genesis 1:2, has sparked centuries of theological debate. Is this a description of a brand new creation, or could it be the aftermath of a world that was once beautiful but fell into ruin? In Isaiah 45:18, we read that God did not create the earth in vain. He formed it to be inhabited. This raises a profound question. Was the earth once inhabited, only to be destroyed, leaving behind a desolate world to be remade anew? Think about it. In the Bible, we know that everything God does is purposeful. Could this gap in the Genesis narrative be more than just a pause in time? Could it be a divine reset, a cleansing of a previous age? The gap theory suggests that a civilization, possibly even one ruled by immortal kings, existed before the creation of Adam and Eve. This earlier world might have been governed by powerful beings whose reign was interrupted by judgment, perhaps due to their corruption or pride. It's a theory that not only aligns with ancient texts, but also reflects our understanding of spiritual warfare. The idea that a world could be lost and reset serves as a sobering reminder of God's authority and his control over time and space. In Genesis 1:2, the earth is described as being in chaos, tohu vabohu, which suggests a catastrophic event. This idea of a former world, wiped away by divine intervention, invites us to reflect on the impermanence of earthly things. We may feel that our own lives are unsteady, but this ancient story offers hope and assurance that God holds ultimate power over the events of this world, and that he can bring restoration even from the deepest void. The gap theory serves as a reminder to us that our understanding of the world and the timeline of humanity may not be as linear as we have been taught. The judgment of the previous world and its eventual restoration parallels our own spiritual journey. It calls us to reflect on the consequences of our actions, as well as the possibilities for redemption that God provides. Perhaps in our own lives there are gaps that need healing, areas that feel barren or desolate. But just as God restored the earth, he is always ready to restore us if we seek him. Melchizedek, the immortal king without beginning or end. One of the most intriguing figures in both the Bible and ancient tradition is Melchizedek, a king and priest who appears in Genesis, yet whose origins and fate remain shrouded in mystery. In the book of Hebrews chapter 7, we are told that Melchizedek was without father, without mother, without genealogy, having neither beginning of days nor end of life. He was like the Son of God, a priest forever. Melchizedek's story offers a glimpse into a deeper, eternal truth. He is described as the King of Salem, believed to be an ancient name for Jerusalem, and the priest of God Most High, and yet he comes and goes without any explanation of his origins. This mysterious figure holds a dual role, both king and priest. The Bible tells us that Abraham, the father of faith, paid tithes to Melchizedek, an extraordinary act of submission to someone who is not just a human being, but a figure of immense spiritual significance. Why is Melchizedek so important? First, his role as a priest of the Most High God points to a time before the formal establishment of the Levitical priesthood, suggesting that God's covenant with humanity transcends any specific line of descendants. Melchizedek's priesthood is eternal, and his appearance in the Bible is like a divine interruption, a reminder that there is a kingdom beyond the one we can see, beyond human time and space. He serves as a type of Christ, foreshadowing Jesus, the eternal high priest. Just as Melchizedek had no beginning or end, so too does Christ. But who exactly was Melchizedek? Some scholars speculate that he was a human being, while others propose that he was a divine manifestation, a Christophany, a pre-incarnation appearance of Christ. What is certain is that Melchizedek's appearance was purposeful. He was a king whose reign was not of this world, and his priesthood pointed to the perfect and eternal priesthood that Jesus Christ would later fulfill. The significance of Melchizedek goes beyond his mysterious nature. He is a reminder that there is a higher order of kingship, one that is not bound by time or earthly constraints. His appearance before Abraham signifies a greater reality, one that transcends the human understanding of power and authority. It is a reminder that even the greatest rulers of this earth are only temporary, while the reign of God is eternal. Melchizedek teaches us a profound lesson about the nature of God's kingdom. Just as he ruled as a king of peace and righteousness, so too are we called to live as citizens of God's eternal kingdom. Our lives are not defined by the limitations of time and space, but by the eternal reality of God's reign. In a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain, Melchizedek's story reminds us that there is a peace that transcends understanding, a righteousness that is not of this world. As we reflect on the eternal nature of God's kingdom and the timeless reign of figures like Melchizedek, we are called to align our hearts with the reality of God's reign. The immortal kings of old, whether from Sumer, Egypt, or the Bible, are not just relics of ancient history. They are reminders that we, too, are part of a much larger story, one that is written by God himself. And just as those kings were called to rule with justice and wisdom, so too are we called to live in a way that reflects the eternal, unshakable kingdom of God. The race that was not human, the sons of God. As we continue to explore the mysterious depths of ancient history and the world before Adam, we encounter another fascinating narrative, the tale of beings who were not human. In Genesis 6:1-2, we read about the sons of God who came down to earth and took wives from the daughters of men. This enigmatic passage has led to many interpretations, but one thing is clear: these were not ordinary men. These sons of God were divine beings, possibly the Watchers mentioned in the book of Enoch, who interacted with humanity in a way that forever changed the course of history. These divine beings were not bound by the limitations of human existence. They were powerful, otherworldly entities, perhaps even akin to angels or celestial beings. Their descent to earth, as described in Genesis, was not a mere event. It was a profound moment that altered the fabric of human life and introduced corruption into the world. This transgression, known as the Fall of the Watchers, is believed to be one of the catalysts for the Great Flood. As their offspring, the Nephilim became giants, spreading chaos and violence across the earth. The presence of these beings, this race that was not human, raises many questions. Why did they come to earth? What was their purpose in interacting with humanity? Could it be that these beings were seeking to impart knowledge, power, or even the seeds of a new order? The Bible doesn't provide all the answers, but the implications are profound. The arrival of the sons of God was a violation of the natural order, a blending of the divine with the human that led to moral and spiritual decay. It is a reminder that even in a world where divine beings walk among us, humanity's choices still carry immense weight. The story of the sons of God challenges us to reflect on the boundaries of divine authority and human responsibility. In the context of our own lives, this story calls us to recognize that we are part of something far greater than ourselves, something ancient and eternal. We may not be living alongside celestial beings, but we are constantly faced with choices that can either align us with the divine purpose or lead us down a path of destruction. The sons of God left a legacy of warning, reminding us that the decisions we make today have the power to shape our future in ways we may not fully understand. But there is hope. As the ancient world was judged, so too can we be redeemed. God's grace is greater than the corruption of the world, and through Christ, we can experience a transformation that restores us to the divine purpose for which we were created. The judgment of the immortals, the fall of the divine kings. Throughout history, the concept of divine kings and rulers has been woven into the fabric of many cultures and traditions. In the Bible, we see the judgment of these divine beings, such as in Psalm 82, Jude 1:6, and 2 Peter 2:4. The immortals, those powerful celestial beings who once reigned over the earth, are ultimately judged by God for their rebellion and their corrupt leadership. Psalm 82 speaks of God standing in judgment over the gods who have failed to administer justice on earth. How long will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? This question is a direct challenge to those in power, whether they are rulers of nations or celestial beings who have overstepped their boundaries. These divine kings and rulers were not immune to judgment. Despite their power and immortality, they were held accountable for their actions. They were cast down, as described in Jude chapter 1:6, where it says that the angels who did not keep their proper domain were bound in chains, awaiting judgment. This serves as a sobering reminder that no matter how powerful we may seem in this life, we are all subject to the authority of God. The immortality of these divine beings did not shield them from the consequences of their rebellion. They were judged for their abuse of power, and their fall serves as a warning to all who seek to exalt themselves above the will of God. But what can we learn from the judgment of these immortals? The lesson is clear. Power without righteousness leads to destruction. Whether it's the rulers of the ancient world, the kings of old, or even the spiritual authorities, those who lead with injustice, corruption, or selfish ambition will ultimately face the judgment of God. The immortals, in their pride, thought themselves above reproach. But their downfall was inevitable. It is a reminder to us that no matter our station in life, we must always strive to live in humility, righteousness, and justice. This judgment also serves as a symbol of the ultimate victory of God's justice over evil. Just as the immortal kings fell, so too will all forces of darkness be vanquished when Christ returns. The judgment of these divine beings points to the final judgment, when all will stand before God to give an account of their actions. It is a sobering thought, but also one that brings hope. The justice of God is perfect, and his righteousness will ultimately triumph over evil. In our own lives, we may not be immortal kings or celestial beings, but we are all entrusted with authority in some form. Whether it's in our families, our communities, or our workplaces, we are called to lead with justice, mercy, and humility. The fall of these immortal kings serves as a reminder that true power is not about domination or control, but about serving others and reflecting the heart of God. The judgment of the immortals is not just a story of divine retribution, it is a story of redemption. For even though these divine beings were cast down, God's plan for salvation remains unbroken. We too can find redemption through Christ, who offers forgiveness and restoration no matter how far we may have fallen. The story of the immortals is a call to reflect on our own leadership and authority, and to align ourselves with God's perfect justice and righteousness. The return of the hidden kings, the final return of the immortals. The ancient prophecies have always whispered of the return of great kings, rulers who once walked among us but disappeared into the shadows of time. These immortal kings are not just remnants of myth, they are real, according to scriptures and ancient writings. In the book of Revelation, we see this return prophesied. The kings of the earth gathered to make war against the rider on the horse and his army. Revelation chapter 10, 19:19. This is not a distant fantasy. It is an event that, according to Scripture, will happen in the fullness of time. But who are these kings? And why does their return matter to us today? These kings who once ruled in the era before Adam are said to remain hidden, waiting for the appointed time when they will rise again. Their return signifies not just the revival of ancient power, but the re-establishment of a divine order, a return to the way things were meant to be before corruption entered the world. These hidden kings, perhaps once gods or celestial beings, will come again in the final days, ready to fulfill their roles in the ultimate drama of the ages. Their appearance will mark a time of great upheaval, but also a time of tremendous revelation and restoration. The idea of these hidden kings has profound implications for our lives. We may not see them walking among us, but the truth remains. There are forces, spiritual and supernatural, at work in the world today. There are kings and powers, both seen and unseen, that are shaping the destiny of the world. And we, as humans, have a responsibility to align ourselves with the divine order that is being restored. But the return of these kings also serves as a call to action. It is a reminder that the things we do in this life matter. The ancient kings were not just rulers, they were agents of change, both good and bad. Their return will be marked by judgment, and their actions will ultimately reveal the heart of God's justice. This is a reminder that, in our own lives, we are part of a larger cosmic battle between good and evil, light and darkness. And the choices we make today will have eternal consequences. The return of these kings is not just a prophecy of the future. It is a living reality that calls us to examine our own hearts and our commitment to the divine cause. How will we stand when the hidden kings return? Will we be found in faith, or will we be swept away by the tides of judgment? The question we must ask ourselves is, do we live as those who await the return of the true King? We are not just spectators in this world. We are active participants in the unfolding story of redemption and restoration. Theological and human significance, understanding our place in the cosmic battle. At the heart of these ancient prophecies, of these immortal kings and the return of divine rule, lies a deeper message. The profound significance of humanity in the grand cosmic battle. From the beginning of time, humans have been involved in a cosmic struggle, one that has eternal consequences. The story of the immortals, their judgment, and their return speaks directly to our place in this larger narrative. But what is that place? What role do we play in the divine drama unfolding across the ages? First, we must recognize that humanity was created for a purpose. In Genesis 1:26, God says, "Let us make man in our image, after our likeness." This declaration is not just a statement about our physical nature, but about our spiritual identity. We are made to reflect God's image in a world that was once perfect, a world that was created for harmony and justice. But as we know, that harmony was shattered by sin. The arrival of the immortal kings, their fall, and their return are not just historical events. They are deeply tied to the battle for the soul of humanity. The story of the immortals is, at its core, a reflection of the struggle between good and evil that we face every day. In the grand cosmic battle, we are not passive observers, we are active participants. As believers, we are called to be warriors of light, standing firm in faith, righteousness, and truth. The return of the immortal kings signals the culmination of this battle, a time when the forces of evil will finally be defeated and God's kingdom will be established in fullness. But in the meantime, we are called to walk in the light, to stand against the powers of darkness, and to hold fast to the hope that is found in Christ alone. The return of the kings is not just a theological concept, it is a challenge to how we live our lives today. Every decision we make, every action we take, either aligns us with the divine purpose or draws us further away from it. The spiritual battle is not fought in the abstract. It is fought in the choices we make every day. The immortal kings, with their power and their judgment, remind us that there are greater forces at work in the world, and that we are a part of that battle. Whether we stand on the side of light or darkness, of faith or rebellion, will determine the course of our eternal destiny. Moreover, the return of the hidden kings calls us to reflect on our own leadership and influence. While we may not be kings in the traditional sense, we are all leaders in our own right. Whether it's in our families, our communities, or our workplaces, we have the power to shape the world around us. The immortal kings were once powerful rulers, but they fell because they misused their authority. The lesson for us is clear. True leadership is not about power, but about service. It is about leading with humility, justice, and mercy, reflecting the heart of the King of Kings. In the final analysis, the return of these kings points to the ultimate triumph of God's justice, mercy, and sovereignty. The immortals may have ruled before, but it is the eternal King who will reign forever. The return of these kings is a sign that the kingdom of God is coming in full glory, and that all who stand with Christ will share in that victory. In this, we find hope, not just for the future, but for the present. No matter the darkness we face, we know that the light of Christ will ultimately prevail, and we are called to live as those who wait for that glorious return. As we approach the end of this journey, I want to invite you to take a moment to reflect. The story we've uncovered is not just an ancient tale of kings and prophecies. It's a living truth that echoes through time, calling each of us to examine our lives, our choices, and our relationship with the divine. The return of these immortal kings, these hidden rulers, is not merely something that happens at the end of time. It is something that is happening right now, in our hearts, our decisions, and our actions. Every day we make choices that either bring us closer to the light or lead us deeper into the shadows. Think about the power of morning prayers. As we rise each day, we stand at a crossroads where we can choose to align ourselves with the divine will, to embrace the peace, love, and strength that God offers us, or to let the distractions and struggles of the world lead us astray. The immortal kings of the past, the ones who walked this earth and now await their return, serve as a reminder that our lives are part of a much larger story, one that spans generations and touches the eternal. They remind us that just as they once ruled with great power, we too have a role to play. We may not wear crowns, but we are all called to lead with integrity, faith, and compassion. But let's also pause and consider the deep significance of morning prayers in this context. When we start our day with prayer, we are connecting with that ancient divine power. We are acknowledging that we too are part of this cosmic story. And just as the kings of old were called to lead with righteousness, we too are called to live out our lives with purpose and intention, reflecting God's light in everything we do. The return of the immortal kings will not only bring about a restoration of divine order, but will also awaken us to our own role in this beautiful, complex story. It will help us remember that we are never alone, that we are always supported by the great divine forces that have always been with us. The power of prayer is not just about asking for help. It is about aligning our hearts with the will of God, trusting that His plan is greater than anything we can understand. As we speak to God in the stillness of the morning, we prepare ourselves for the battles of the day, knowing that we are not fighting alone. And in those moments of quiet reflection, we find strength, peace, and hope. Now, if this message has resonated with you, if you feel that the story of the immortal kings and the transformative power of prayer has touched your soul in some way, I invite you to be a part of this journey. If you believe that this video has brought value to your life or helped you find a bit of light in the midst of darkness, I kindly ask for your support. Your energy, your presence, and your encouragement are what make all of this possible. If you feel moved to like and subscribe, it would mean the world to me. Each like, each comment, each share is not just a simple click. It is a powerful affirmation that we are all in this together. And if you would like to share your thoughts or reflections in the comments below, I would love to hear from you. What does the return of these kings mean to you? How do you experience the power of morning prayers in your life? Every word, every gesture of support, no matter how small, is a blessing that helps me continue creating content that uplifts, inspires, and shares the light of God's word with others. Your support is not just appreciated, it is priceless. It is what keeps me going, what fuels my passion to keep sharing the messages that matter most. Together we are part of something much larger than ourselves, something eternal, something powerful. So, thank you, from the very depths of my heart, for being here, for being a part of this journey. I am truly grateful for you. I pray that you continue to find peace, strength, and divine guidance in all that you do. And may you be forever guided by the light of morning prayers, by the wisdom of the immortal kings, and by the love of the one who created it all. Let us move forward in faith, in hope, and in the assurance that no matter what challenges lie ahead, we are never alone. The divine order is unfolding, and we are part of it.